Why do some people like horror movies? Apart from them being a great excuse to eat junk food, of course. Ah, chocolates. Don't mind if I do.
The box. You opened it. We came.
The good news is that liking horror doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Probably. A big reason that some of us enjoy horror films is that they allow us to play with negative emotions such as suspense, fear and disgust without any real physical risk. This is often referred to as recreational fear. If you're wondering how getting scared at a horror film could ever be recreational, it's because our idea of recreation is associated with things like uncertainty and surprise. We find experiences that contain a degree of uncertainty and surprise pleasurable. A good horror film provides uncertainty and surprise in abundance. Of course, people differ in the amount of uncertainty and surprise that they enjoy. Too much of these things makes an experience seem overwhelming and aversive. Research suggests that we're motivated to seek out experiences that expose us to levels of uncertainty and surprise that are just right for us. And a horror film can be a great way of achieving this. In addition to recreation, another reason that some of us gravitate towards horror films is because of something called benign masochism. This just means that we can derive a certain amount of enjoyment from a stimuli that we find initially unpleasant, such as a frightening scene in a scary movie. When you watch a scene in a scary movie, such as a killer chasing a potential victim, the simulated threat causes a build-up of negative emotions such as apprehension and fear. But when the scene is resolved, let's say by the victim escaping, that apprehension and fear is replaced with a rush of euphoria and relief. This feels great and rewards you for having endured the initial discomfort. Psychologists call this process excitation transfer. Benign masochism explains why we prefer horror films that feature a threat that we find plausible. For example, if we believe in the supernatural, we'll tend to gravitate towards horror films with supernatural content. It also explains why the less easily scared we think we are, the more frequently we will tend to watch horror films, and the more extreme our choice in horror films will tend to be. The reasons for enjoying horror films likely extend into the realm of personal insight and growth. For example, some researchers examined whether the enjoyment of horror reflects different perceived benefits between individuals. Such researchers distinguish between 3 types of horror fan. There are the adrenaline junkies who just report that they enjoy being scared in the moment. The white knucklers who claim they don't enjoy the sensations associated with being scared, but feel like they've learned something about themselves and developed as a result of having been scared. And finally we have the dark copers, who report finding being scared both enjoyable and personally beneficial. You might find it hard to believe that there's much in terms of personal insight or opportunities for future growth to be gained from being scared, but horror is all about simulated threat, and this allows us to discover how we deal with negative emotions such as fear, which can help us deal more effectively with less extreme forms of hostility and threat in day-to-day life. Liking horror films certainly isn't restricted to a particular personality type, but some research has begun to examine the relationship between the consumption of horror films and trait morbid curiosity, which refers to an interest in things that are perceived as threatening or dangerous. Not surprisingly, preliminary research has revealed that if you score highly in trait morbid curiosity, you're more likely to watch horror films, will tend to report lower levels of fear when you're watching them, and also be more likely to watch them independently. Morbid curiosity may sound almost pathological, but it's something that we all have to some degree, because it's in our best interest to recognise and understand threats to our health, well-being, and even our survival. To this end, morbid curiosity can be directed towards specific threats. Liking for horror films could simply be a product of wanting to know what drives a villain and what distinguishes them from their victims. Indeed, morbid curiosity has been associated with watching horror films to find out who the villain is and who will be the last survivor. And this probably also explains why TV series about true and fictional crime are so popular. Liking horror films doesn't make you a sadist or mean that you're lacking in empathy. As we've seen in this video, there are perfectly benign and adaptive reasons why many of us enjoy at least some scary movies from time to time. Be good to each other, and I'll be right back for the next video.